Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Twitter, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. As always, I'm Bryson Carver. Very excited to be with you on this Friday. I'm in a very patriotic mood today. Listen, it's Team USA, traveling to Paris, France. There was obviously the openings. I've seen pictures, I've seen photos from the Team USA men's basketball team, women's basketball team, the tennis team. Very excited to watch the ceremony in its entirety when ESPN re-airs it in about an hour and a half. Can be excited about that. We got a lot to talk about today, though, mostly related to football. The Raiders doing what any low-esteem franchise would do, and that is troll not only the best player in the National Football League, but the guy who has tortured you for the better part of the last 6 seasons in Patrick Mahomes. I'll discuss that in about a half hour. Also, a recent article as well as a quarterback in the NFL. I just got a text saying my sound is breaking up. Hopefully everything sounds good. Let me know in the comments if my sound sounds fine. But I think what is he overrated, or is he overrated relative to the conversation around him, and particularly around another one of his contemporaries? That in about 45 minutes. Also, Tua Tagovailoa, we got news about 3 hours before the show began that Tua got the bag. Tua got paid by the Miami Dolphins 4 years, $212 million. He's now the third highest paid player in the National Football League. Discuss that and why I think the Dolphins fall into a weird category of teams that kind of need to pay their quarterback, even though I think most of us are kind of skeptical on Tua. Very excited about that. And at the end of today's show, for Olympics. Very excited. But first, I led the show with Dak yesterday, and we're leading it off today with a much bigger story. So think about this. So the Dallas Cowboys had their, you got whoever the head coach is. Obviously, it's Mike McCarthy, an actual role player in this press conference, because Jerry's the star and Steven is the co-star, and the media's all around. It's Oxnard, that's training camp starting. Let's see what the Joneses have to say. And it was the typical Dallas Cowboys State of the Union speech by Jerry. You had your I'm going all in comments. You had your hanging around the rim, which is a term that Stephen Jones popularized a couple of seasons ago. We have another number of terms. What else did he say? Oh, blank. Saying that, yeah, it's like the greatest hits of the Jones family. We're all played over the course of about 45 plus minutes at Cowboys training camp yesterday. But as has been the number one case, as is the case with the Dallas Cowboys and with the story of their offseason, it's paying their stars. And, of course, Dak's the story. Dak is the one who's going to be an imminent free agent, unrestricted free agent in 2025. And this is what Jerry Jones had to say at the press conference about.
I do not think that this will be his last year with the Cowboys at all. Is there? Am I being I want to say it if it hadn't been clear of how much we appreciate what Dak Prescott has meant to this team, and a part of it or not. I've had a lot of things I wanted that I couldn't get because I couldn't afford it. That in 80-something years, you bet I have, and life does go on. And sometimes when you get a bump like that, you turn around and do better than you would have had you got.
So it appears that Jerry could be implying that the Cowboys could potentially better off. That's obviously ridiculous because of the simple fact that Dallas is and has been a disaster without, forget great quarterback play, just decent quarterback play. Top of the line, current Mount Rushmore type quarterbacks, they were both Romo was highly productive. Dak Prescott in a similar way to a greater degree if you look at the numbers across the board. What are the Dallas? So Troy Aikman retired at the end of the 2000 season. Okay? Troy Aikman retired at the end of that year. Since then, since the 2001 season through the 2023 season, the best quarterbacks the Cowboys have had, Dak Prescott, Tony Romo. What have they been with those guys? What have they been without those guys? We can show you the numbers right here, ladies and gentlemen. With Romo and Dak, they win about 61% of their games. Without them, they don't even win 40% of their games. With Romo and Dak, they got 9 playoff appearances and 4 playoff wins. Without Romo and Dak, 1 playoff appearance, 0 playoff wins. So, and one can make the case, hey, whoa, time out, Bryson. Wait a minute. You can make a case that Jerry's actually right. The Cowboys move on from Tony Romo and decide to move to Dak Prescott. They lucked into both scenarios, as I've talked about extensively on this show. Tony Romo was undrafted in 2003. You say, well, how did the Cowboys develop him into being a very good franchise quarterback by the time he took over in 2006? I'll tell you exactly why. His head coach was Bill Parcells. One of his offensive coordinators / play callers and coaches in that time span was Sean Payton, one of the best offensive minds of the 21st century in the National Football League. So when you have some of the smartest offensive minds in the game, it's going to help your quarterback development. Dallas, with respect to McCarthy, simply does not have that. Well, what about Dak? What about Dak? Dak wasn't even the first quarterback, nor the second quarterback, maybe even the third on the Cowboys board when their draft picks came in sequence. The Cowboys famously, this is well-sourced, well-reported across the board, they wanted Paxton Lynch at the end of the first round back in 2016. They almost traded up to get him. Denver did. Paxton Lynch was out of the league in like 2 to 3 years. Top of the 4th round, kid out of Michigan State named Connor Cook was available. Dallas wanted him. Darn it, the Raiders swooped in and took Connor Cook. Gosh darn it, we could have drafted him. And then they took Dak Prescott in the 4th round of the 2016 NFL Draft. It's almost as if they lucked into both, as tends to be the case with Cowboys quarterbacks post-Aikman. But Stephen Jones, if we're going to stay in this Dak contract train, and Dak, in his own words, let's just say, stirred the pot a little bit. But I think in some ways it very well might have been prompted from this quote, or by this quote, from Stephen Jones. Take a listen.
You know, you look at a guy like Jefferson, they're not paying a quarterback. They're not paying anybody on their roster at this point. So it's a lot easier for them to stretch a little more. And we're just trying to work through reasonably with CD, reasonably with Dak, what we can do to make it work from an economic standpoint. And certainly when you're trying to pay 3 guys like that, it certainly does limit your opportunities to maybe improve the roster down the line.
So Stephen Jones appears to be implying, you know, CeeDee Lamb's contract would be done if it weren't for that pesky quarterback money. I'll tell you what. Yeah, the pesky quarterback money. Dak Prescott, he's overpaid. He's the 12th highest paid quarterback in the league. 12th, tied with Matthew Stafford. What I also find interesting, and I want to give credit, Jason OTC is who tweeted this. This information about Dak Prescott, the Cowboys, as it relates to his contract, and as it relates to the Cowboys paying other players. You sign a quarterback, it's hard to keep everybody else together. Of the 14 teams in the NFL who are paying their quarterback $40 million, the Cowboys are just one of 3 without another player that makes $20 million per year on a multi-year deal. The Chiefs pay other guys $20 million or more. So do the Philadelphia Eagles pay a bunch of guys. I think Philadelphia might have like 5 players in that mix last I checked. The Buffalo Bills at one point did. The only other teams who cannot say that they are in that group, Arizona Cardinals, Cincinnati Bengals. Only other teams with the Cowboys who are paying their quarterback $40 million who are not paying other guys another $20 million. Well, Bryson, I mean, that could be just because they're spreading the money out and they're paying other positions. And I saw this today, and this is really fascinating. I've always called the Cowboys cheaper than you think. I didn't realize it was to this degree. So this is from Sheil Kapadia of The Ringer. I want to give him credit because he pointed this out. I'm going to submit this in question form. There are 32 teams in the NFL, right? If you had to guess among the 32 teams in the NFL where the Dallas Cowboys rank in terms of payroll, where do you think Dallas ranks? Among 32 teams, where do the Cowboys rank in terms of payroll? Take a guess. Dead last. The Cowboys are dead last in the National Football League in terms of payroll, in terms of cash spent. So Stephen Jones trying to put out this narrative, this notion, we could get these other deals done, but, Dak Prescott's contract, I mean, what are we going to do? And I think it's gotten to a point for Dak Prescott, who has always been Mr. Cowboy. He's been Mr. Team Guy, Mr. almost PC to a degree, almost in a way like presidential in the way that you would prefer, presidents to conduct themselves, like not giving you a ton, but also sounding diplomatic in their answers. Dak Prescott's essentially said, the hell with diplomacy. Here's how I really feel.
It's a two-way street that they have once, I have once. I think I've deserved that, understanding that this is a business. And obviously I want to be here. Talking about growing up, this is where I've become a man. So, but at the end of the day, it's a business. And, when I'm going to say it, I want to be here. But, when you look up, all the great quarterbacks I watched played for other teams. So my point in saying that is that's not something to fear. That may be a reality for me one day, may not.
Notice the first part of that clip. Dak is like, I'm just going to give the same old answer. And then he pauses. Then he looks to his left. He's like, okay, I'm going to say it. I may play with a different team next year. I am here to tell you today. So I've been covering this particular play. I've been a fan of this guy since his days at Mississippi State. I've been a Dak Prescott fan for might as well be a decade at this point. I have Dak rated higher than most people do on their list. I have Dak as the 5th best quarterback in the NFL today. I need to see a little more from CJ Stroud, otherwise he'll surpass him. Herbert, Dak's beaten him twice, has 0 playoff wins. Those are the only other guys who can make a case above Dak. Jared Goff, Dak's outplayed him just about every time they've ever played, and they're 3-3 against each other when Jared has significantly better rosters in almost all the matchups. Point of that all is to say this. I'm here to tell you today that Dak Prescott is a different Dak Prescott than we've seen at all when it comes to contract discussions with the media. Even if you go back to 2020, when Dak was on the franchise tag, I was always, I want to be a Cowboy for life. We're going to get it worked out. We're going to get it worked out. And he has, kind of been saying that over the course of this offseason until yesterday, where he's like, yeah, there's a chance I may play for somebody different next year. And I'm okay with that. I'm here to tell you today 2 things. A, I think that response and that answer and the hesitation that preceded it was a response in his own negotiating way of responding to the Jones family at the State of the Cowboys press conference. Stephen Jones and Jerry Jones. Jerry saying, hey, we could be better in the long term without Dak, without actually saying that. And Stephen saying, it's kind of hard to pay guys when Dak's making so much money. I don't even know what we're going to do. I'm telling you right now, today's July 26th, 2024. Free agency is going to open in 8 months. 8 months from now, Dak Prescott will not be a Dallas Cowboy. I am telling you today. There's too much friction. There's too much, in the words of Jerry Jones, he kept using this word during the press conference, ambiguity between the two sides, to the point where Dak's like, what do I have to lose? It's the very reason I've said at points this offseason, folks. When people are like, oh, man, Dak's got a lot of pressure on him this season. I'm like, does he? The roster is average at best. Without CeeDee Lamb, they're a below-average roster. There's turnover on the coaching staff. They're not the best roster in their own division. If you watch Washington this year, they may not have the second best roster in that division. They're darn sure not a Super Bowl contender in an NFC that's got San Francisco, that's got Detroit, Green Bay. Chicago's not a contender, but they're certainly on the come up. The Rams, I think, are dangerous this year. Who knows what Philadelphia does? They've certainly got the roster to do it. Dallas is simply not in that class of teams. In their own conference, forget the NFL. Dak's going to get paid regardless. What's the pressure on him this year? I can see Dak replicating or having at least close to what he did last year in terms of statistical output. And the Cowboys being a 10 at best 11-win team and then out in round 1. What's the pressure on Dak? It's just a repeat of what's been happening with an average roster, which I've said it's been for the last 2 years. It feels like now the national media is kind of finally catching up to me on that. Dak is not going to be a Cowboy in 8 months. You can book it. And I think the new tone by Dak is a response to you got to be kidding me. Jerry thinks he's going to be better off without me. This comes 3 years after Jerry telling me to my face that he overpaid me. Stephen Jones basically blaming me for my teammate not having a contract, even though I'm not even top 10 highest paid at my position. And by the way, the Cowboys are dead last in the NFL in terms of payroll. Did I mention that? That feels sort of notable. Jerry Jones, yes, he likes to make a show of the Cowboys. He actually recently had a quote, which I found honest I've ever seen Jerry, where he said, quote, "I realize all the criticism and I understand it. As a matter of fact, I try to stir it up. And I have been since I got here. That's good. Be relevant. It works." End quote. Yep. Thanks for admitting, Jerry. That's who you are. That's who you've been. Really, ever since the day you fired Jimmy Johnson, you told us that you were ego. You told us that the image of the Cowboys is far more important than actually winning football games, which there's a number of organizations who that is first and foremost for that could sure use a quarterback. Pittsburgh Steelers. Just saying. Dak in 2025 and as recently as soon as 8 months from now will not be a Dallas Cowboy. And the Cowboys can try it. You know what? If you want to roll up, they can try it to training wheels and Trey Lance, knock yourself out. But what I will tell you is 2 things. A, Trey Lance could even work with Kyle Shanahan. And B, Trey Lance's last year in San Francisco before the trade to Dallas, that training camp at least a year ago, there were 3 quarterbacks on the Niners roster. Brock Purdy, who was the presumed starter, assuming he had a healthy elbow, and then 2 guys fighting for the backup job. Trey Lance and a journeyman draft bust, Sam Darnold. And the journeyman draft bust, Sam Darnold, in Kyle Shanahan's system, beat out Trey Lance. And that's who the Cowboys are going to turn to next year? Okay. Well, all right, so they could draft somebody. Yeah, they've really done a great job with that since Troy Aikman retired. I don't know. Just a thought. But Dak will not be a Cowboy in 2025. Let's see what we got up in here. Patrick Brown, big Cowboys fan, by the way. I love how Mike McCarthy is cool, calm, and collected by internally saying, yep, keep talking. Yeah, and you know what I noticed too, Patrick, is McCarthy did it. McCarthy's first question was asked about 20 minutes into the press conference. So it was just Jerry, Stephen, Jerry, McCarthy. Finally, they get to the coach of the team. And I don't remember who the media member is. I apologize, who asked McCarthy his first question. And he said, all right, let's talk football. And Jerry responds, we've been talking about football. And I'm sure McCarthy said, like, no, you haven't been. It's kind of like, remember that report that came out a few weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago, that Mike McCarthy had his patience worn thin. Or I forget what the exact wording was, but it had a distraction that Jerry was causing the franchise and the football team as a result. Listen, I don't think Mike McCarthy is exactly a top-of-the-line coach. I don't think he's as bad of a coach as some try to make it seem. I think he's like, I've never ranked coaches, but I've had to guess. I'd say like the 14th, 15th best coach in the league. He's not bad. He's not great. And coach of the Cowboys, the best of his ability, and it's kind of not. It's why when I hear, oh, Belichick, I promise you will not go to the Dallas Cowboys, especially if Dak leaves, because Belichick is going to go to a situation next year where it's a ready now, win now mode. Philadelphia, to me, feels like the obvious choice. A franchise that's about football first rather than the ego of their owner /GM. But Let's see. A Revelation journalist, the Cowboys front office has been Dak's millstone around his neck since he entered the NFL. And it's it has been for Dak Prescott I've always said he doesn't get the credit he deserves, and what a lot of Cowboys quarterbacks deserve, but I think is the fact that the guy's been rock solid in the media, constantly, again, very few gaffes. He had one a few years ago where he basically encouraged Cowboys fans to throw stuff at refs. That wasn't cool, and Dak the next day apologized, like, my bad, shouldn't have said that. But by and large, rarely, if any times, has Dak had a gaffe at the mic. He's always conducted himself from his rookie year on in an adult fashion, in a franchise quarterback-eel style way, and we're at a point in time where he's like, okay, screw it. And listen, for me, watching Dak Prescott, for as a guy who's been like, Dak, leave, get out of there. When I saw that soundbite from the press conference yesterday, my reaction was
about damn time. It's about damn time.
It really was. It's about time he stands up for himself, and I respect him for doing it. Patrick, I'm preparing for the worst. As a lifelong Cowboys fan, nothing surprises me by what's been said. Now listen. Jerry will, and Jerry too, and then we'll move on because we've already spent 22 minutes on the Dallas Cowboys. Jerry had a quote when he was talking about contract negotiations, and he was talking about we're running an option play. Basically, he said we're running an option play, and I haven't pitched the ball yet. And he said, does that sound like Patrick Mahomes? I don't even know what he's trying to get. Jerry will have one quote where you're like, what the heck did he just say? I'll never forget years ago when Ezekiel was negotiating his contract, and Jerry compared contract negotiations with Zeke to severing your hand in the forest and trying to get to the hospital in time. He'll have one or two where you're like, I've never heard that one before. It could be, folksy is, I guess, the nicest way to put it. But man, oh man. Speaking of quarterbacks getting paid, by the way, Tua got paid today. 4 years, $212 million with the Miami Dolphins. Obviously, the biggest contract in Dolphins history. And as we sit here today, Tua is the third highest paid player and obviously third highest paid quarterback in the National Football League, behind only Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence. So I have had a weird journey covering Tua Tagovailoa over the years. One could call me the Nikki Haley of sports journalism when it comes to covering Tua Tagovailoa. And I don't ever strive to be that. I don't like to be flip-floppy. I like to have a strong opinion, strong take, and if I'm proven incorrect, moving my take. When Tua was at Alabama, I'm like, man, he seems to have a good arm. He's really accurate. He's good moving in and out of the pocket. The leadership skills are there. Yes, he has some durability issues, but that probably gets resolved in the NFL. He's still young. And I loved him coming into that 2020 draft. More than Burrow even. Clearly, I was wrong on that. And about a year and a half in, I'm like, yeah, this doesn't work. I don't see it. The arm strength isn't what I thought it was. He seems to be a little bit overwhelmed in the pocket. But then Mike McDaniel takes over. And Mike McDaniels puts him in position to be successful with the Kyle Shanahan West Coast offense. They incorporate the running game. They add Tyreek Hill. And all of a sudden, you're seeing a much better Tua, statistically at least. But still with the injuries in 2022. He comes back last year. I see a better velocity on his deep ball. I see better decision-making. He's moving better. And I'm like, maybe I was wrong on Tua. Maybe the Tua-non crowd was correct in that. And then by season's end, it was like, no, I shouldn't have moved off that take. That's the one thing, ladies and gentlemen, I try to do. I'm always striving to do on this show is not only being authentic, but also being consistent with my takes and not trying to blow at the wind, which in the vast majority of topics, I don't. But with Tua, to a degree, I have. So should the Dolphins have paid Tua? Well, I was thinking about this today because we've seen a lot of quarterbacks get paid over the last few years. And to me, there are three tiers or three different reasons why a franchise should pay a quarterback big long-term money. Three reasons. The first one is pretty simple. He's amazing. He's awesome. Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, CJ Stroud's going to get there, we assume, in a couple of years. Those guys, like, they're just awesome. They are franchise changers. You are a Super Bowl contender day one when those guys take over. That's an easy call to make. The second reason is he's good. He's a very good quarterback who we are going to have to overpay a little bit. We don't feel totally comfortable with it, but we trust our ability to draft elite talent around him, because the fact of the matter is we can't pay everybody, so we're going to have to kind of, rebuild and reload our offense or defense depending on, what team is strong on that side or on either side of the ball. See the Detroit Lions. Jared Goff is a very good quarterback who's paid like a great quarterback, but Detroit's front office, Brad Holmes, does a phenomenal job in the draft. Detroit's last 3 drafts, and I think it's about to be last 4 drafts, have been outstanding. So you can make up for that. The Philadelphia Eagles, I think Jalen Hurts is a very good quarterback. The Eagles are one of the best drafting teams in football, one of the best front offices in football, so you can make up for it. That's the second reason you give a quarterback big money. The third reason you give a quarterback big money long-term is he's good to very good, but we are an organization that really struggles to find any semblance of great play at the quarterback position. We're not terribly well run. We're kind of dysfunctional and chaotic. We need to just kind of give him the bag. Kyler Murray with the Arizona Cardinals, Trevor Lawrence with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and Tua with the Miami Dolphins. Miami has been better run in the last few years. They've drafted slightly better in the last few seasons. They've had a couple of gaffes, in kind of the middle part of the draft, but a lot of that is a guessing game in their defense. But that, to me, is the biggest justification for playing Tua. Because, first of all, for Tua's sake, this is his best destination. Mike McDaniel's one of the brightest offensive coaches in football. He's still got Tyreek Hill. He's got Jalen Waddle. Both are on long-term contracts, so he's set for a while with those two guys. Probably the best receiving tandem, arguably, in the league. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. Say, hold my beer. But we've got some good pieces. We've got a solid offensive line, Raheem Mostert, good running game. Here's the issue, though, for the Dolphins, and this is why it is slightly dangerous to be in that situation, like an Arizona Cardinals with Kyler, like a Jacksonville Jaguars. I love Trevor. Most don't. That's okay. To pay a good to very good quarterback great money when you're kind of dysfunctional, because you're going to have a hard cap, a hard ceiling on how far you can go. And to me, with Miami, you could say the hard ceiling for Miami, or with Tua at least, is arm strength, is durability. He was able to stay healthy. He played every game last year. Knock on wood that continues and the concussion problems don't reoccur. But you would think that those would be the issues with Tua. They're issues, they're notable and should not be ignored. But to me, by far, the biggest problem with the Miami Dolphins and the biggest issue they're going to run into with Tua Tagovailoa is pretty simple, and they have literally no control over it at all. Matter of fact, none of us do, to a degree at least. Weather. Climate. In the playoffs, it's not going to favor the Dolphins unless they get the number 1 seed in the AFC every year, and the numbers back it up. So Tua, this is kind of insane, folks. When Tua Tagovailoa is playing in climate conditions and weather conditions where the weather is above 48 degrees, show his stats. He's a very good quarterback. Okay, he's 32-14 record, 68.1% completion percentage, 7.8 yards per pass, 2.53 touchdown to interception ratio, and he has a passer rating at 100. Those are very good numbers. It's an excellent record. Like, you'll take that any day of the week. That's Tua in temperatures over 48 degrees. But if it's 48 degrees or under, 48, we're not talking freezing. 48 degrees or under. So if it's just chilly, if it's chilly to frigid, Tua turns into an objectively awful quarterback. He's 0-6, completes 55% of his passes, 6.6 yards per pass. His touchdown to interception ratio is 0.75. That's awful. And he has a passer rating of 69.8, well below average. The bad news is for the Miami Dolphins is the best AFC teams are almost all in cold weather. Buffalo, Baltimore, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Kansas City. We saw what he was in Kansas City in one of the coldest games in NFL history. It was a rough outing for the Miami Dolphins, to say the very least. So that, to me, is going to be the thing that's going to hold Miami back for years to come. But listen, they've now made their bed. Now they're going to have to lie in it. And again, the justification for paying Tua, the statistical output is good. He's got an excellent offensive coach with him and Mike McDaniel. The weapons are there. But the Dolphins, let's be honest, by and large, certainly since the retirement, I talked about the Cowboys since Aikman's retirement. If you want to talk about the Dolphins post-Marino retirement, that's where they sit today. That's where they sit today. And they certainly didn't have to pay Tua. But on the other side of the coin, since Marino retired, we cannot find anything at quarterback. Tannehill was the closest thing to that, and even Tannehill went on to be better with the Titans than he ever was with Miami. We just don't develop quarterbacks very well, so Tua might be the best we're going to get, so we sort of have to pay him from that perspective. Do I think Tua is a top 10 quarterback? I don't. Is he top 15? Around that area. Again, I did my tiers of quarterbacks on the show a few weeks ago, and it's on YouTube. You can check it out, National Football League, and I had Tua in tier 5 with Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, Anthony Richardson. We haven't seen Anthony Richardson much, but what we have seen is good, and Russell Wilson. I think he's in that tier of quarterbacks. He's a tier above Derek Carr, Geno Smith, Deshaun Watson, Jaden Daniels, and he's a tier below Love, Hurts, Rodgers, Cousins. I think Caleb Williams is going to be phenomenal, and Brock Purdy. So the Dolphins kind of had to pay Tua, but they're also kind of stuck. They're going to be not in football hell for the next few years, but, let's just say that the Flames are a story below you. We'll put it that way. Not to get all dark there, but that's kind of where they're at. Patrick, Dak watching Goff, Lawrence, and Tua get paid. He'll be an LA Ram as we'll take on what's left of Stafford. If it's not the Rams, Pittsburgh is the compensatory winner. First of all, if the Rams still have Stafford, they're not going to trade him. That I know for a fact. There's no unless Stafford just has a bad year, in which case, again, Sean McVay, literally the only reservation I have about Dak going to the Rams is the fact that Sean McVay could retire any day. He almost retired last year. And so that's like the uncertainty. Do you lose one of the best coaches in football? Like that could be a drawback. And the thing is, Dak is going to be an unrestricted free agent. He can go wherever he wants to go. And let's be honest, his market is going to be robust. The Raiders, who I'm going to talk about later, desperately need a quarterback. The Steelers, listen, as a Steelers fan, I like what I'm seeing from Justin Fields in practice, but it's still practice. What did Allen Iverson say, about practice? Talking about practice, man. So, I mean, and I'm pulling for Justin, pulling for Russell, whoever a quarterback is, but to me, they're a placeholder. They're absolutely a placeholder for either Dak or a quarterback we draft. Now, I'm praying to the high heavens that it's Dak, who we would take on at age 32 years old, smack dab in the middle of his prime. With Mike Tomlin, those weapons, that defense, got a pretty good shot. So that's where we're at with the Dallas Cowboys. Or we have with the Cowboys, with the Steelers, with the Rams. Whether or not he goes to the Rams, Patrick's going to be hinged on whether or not Stafford retires or not. He could. I mean, he's not flirted with it, but it seemed like it's not out of the question. It's not off the table the last couple of years because of the injuries to him coming in greater regularity, or coming with greater regularity. But we'll see how it plays out. But I do think the Rams are a legit Super Bowl contender in the NFC. The only thing that holds me back from, I'll pick my Super Bowl teams and do all my preseason predictions with Ryan Flowers, hopefully. Shout out to Ryan, Clutch Sports Talk. In a month or month and a half when right before the season starts. But the only reservations I have of the Rams is they lost one of the 3 greatest defensive players of all time in my mind in Aaron Donald. That's the only sort of drawback. All right, let's transition now. Again, we're talking about quarterbacks. We talked about Dak probably leaving, not probably leaving. I think Dak is going to leave this offseason. I'm predicting it today. I'm putting my name to it, and you can hold it against me if he signs a deal next week. If he re-signs in Dallas after the season, who knows? We talk about Tua getting paid. Let's talk about a guy who's a consensus top 5 quarterback in the NFL named Josh Allen. So, in case you didn't know, Josh Allen is pretty good at football. But what I have over the last, let's say 9 months kind of pushed back on is the is the narrative that he's almost in some ways you can't criticize him. And what I mean by that is, well, what are you going to do? He loses to Mahomes. That's fine. And by the way, I've said that for years. If he can't be Mahomes, I can't really put him in that Mahomes tier, which for the record, I think tier 1 of quarterbacks, my tier 1 is Patrick Mahomes, end of list. He's a transformative talent in the history of American team sports. That doesn't say Josh Allen isn't great, because he is. But this idea, well, I mean, Josh Allen, he's the closest thing to Mahomes. I mean, if you rank quarterbacks, it's Mahomes 1, it's Josh Allen right on his tail at number 2. No, it is not. And again, the Josh Allen stands, man, they're fierce, man. They will come after you. And it sucks because I love Bills Mafia. I think they're the best fan base in professional sports. But they will come after you if you go after their guy. So this is from Jeremy Fowler, a great reporter, great insider in the NFL, who got this from an anonymous NFL executive a couple of weeks ago about Josh Allen. Quote, one of the more overrated players in the NFL. Immense talent, but he makes a lot of mistakes. He's underdeveloped at winning at the line of scrimmage, tends to lock in on targets, more of a thrower than precision passer, forces throws into traffic, end quote. Now, first of all, I hate it when people are anonymous. Much rather you put your name to it. But the Bills GM and the Bills front office staff players have been like, man, this guy's an idiot. This guy should lose his job, yada, yada, yada. Okay. Among every quarterback in the NFL, is Josh Allen overrated? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. A lot of folks have him at number 2. I think it's too high. I can't put him, over a guy in Joe Burrow who's beaten Patrick Mahomes once in the playoffs, 3 times in totality. I can't put him above Lamar Jackson, who has 2 MVPs to his 0. But is Josh Allen overrated relative to Mahomes? Undeniably, absolutely, unequivocally, yes. And I'll explain exactly why. When we talk about great quarterbacks, what do we tend to rely on? Winning, first and foremost. That's how we judge Brady as the greatest quarterback ever. That's why we're judging Mahomes on a similar track. It's why we view Montana in the form fashion that we do. Peyton Manning was a great statistical quarterback, but man, Peyton just couldn't come up big in the big game. But to the Peyton Manning point, there's also great statistical quarterbacks. Peyton, Rodgers, Favre, Breeze. Not that they didn't win, all of them won, but we recognize them more for their stats, for MVP awards. Favre has 3, Peyton has 5, but Rodgers has 4. Breeze somehow doesn't have any. I'm not quite sure how. How will we judge Josh Allen if this particular... Oh, yeah, he's awesome in terms of just pure raw ability. In terms of statistical output, he's kind of average. You can put up the numbers right here. Since 2021, this is a 3-year sample size, ladies and gentlemen. 3-year sample size in the NFL pass rating. He's 8th in pass yards per game. 23rd in completion percentage. 23rd. And he is 15th in touchdown to interception ratio. That feels, I don't know, notable. That feels like something that we should, to a certain degree, pay attention to. When you consider the fact that Josh Allen, Josh Allen has a lower passer rating in the last 3 years than Jimmy G, Geno Smith, and Russell Wilson. That he has a lower completion percentage than the following: Teddy Bridgewater, Andy Dalton, and Mac Jones. All statistically, over the last 3 seasons, a more accurate quarterback than Mac Jones. Than Josh Allen. But whenever there is criticism of Josh that he can be a bit too reckless. Well, I mean, there's other guys Brett Favre was really reckless. Yes, Brett Favre, who went to the Super Bowl, won another Super Bowl, and has 3 league MVPs, and is universally regarded as one of the 10 greatest quarterbacks ever. If you're going to give me some busts, some sometimes really ugly busts, you better give me some boom. My colleague, and a great friend of mine. I love the man to death. He knows that. Mike Guido. Red Sox and Yankees facing off this week. Mike, we're going to take 2 out of 3. You watch. May sweep you while we're at it. Mike Guido, and I, again, love the guy, once compared Allen to Kobe Bryant in the sense that, hey, percentages of some of his great scoring games are horrendous. If you look at the Buffalo Bills' last 3 seasons in the postseason, okay, those we showed you statistics, and by and large, he's an average quarterback statistically. If we think about the last 3 playoff outputs for the Buffalo Bills, what do we first think of? Well, we think about the 13-second game, right? The 13-second game where Josh Allen played undoubtedly the greatest game of his career. Nothing short of phenomenal. I've got his stats right here. 329 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, QBR of 92, and a passer rating of 136. The guy was nothing short of magic and should have won that game until Mahomes did what Mahomes often does. And Allen, again, in his defense, never got to touch the ball after that. That was on his defense. That was not on him. It's the greatest game he ever played. But the last 2 playoff losses for the Buffalo Bills, he wasn't great. Matter of fact, he was kind of mediocre. Josh Allen against the Bengals in the 2022 playoffs. 264 yards, 0 touchdowns passing, 1 interception, QBR 57, and a pass rating of 68. I mean, we ripped Dak for playoff performances. He hasn't had many that bad. And finally, the game of the year, all right, Chiefs-Bills, divisional round. Okay, there's this whole Mahomes and Allen is the next Brady Manning. Here we go. That's entirely the great winner and Brady. Allen is nowhere near that, obviously. Even from a single season. In which Josh Allen, I heard which is pretty good. A pass rating of 86, which is that almost cost his team the game. The Bills got a very lucky bounce in order to keep possession, in which Josh Allen, on a 3rd down, right before the missed kick, by I forget the kicker's name for the Bills, but before the missed kick. Would have been a 1st down. Excellent playoff performance. If we're going to criticize Josh, if he is who they say he is, Patrick, no, he's more like his distant galaxy. For the record, nobody's in the same galaxy as Mahomes. I the National Football League. He can do literally everything. What did he say? Immense talent, but he makes a lot of. He's underdeveloped at winning at the line. I'm no genius when it comes to. But just, again, totally by my naked eye, he for any quarterback in the NFL. And the final thing that's not throws into traffic. Yeah, his completion percentage. Again, percentage is the than Josh. If you look at all the quarterbacks in the league and the idea that he is just this, might as well be the second coming, is the one of the great objectively by the tape, by the playoff results, and by the statistical idea that this is just a the deeper you look, it really isn't. But, what do I know? Josh Allen has one conference finals, one conference championship appearance and is 0-0. Just don't tell us he's in the same conversation with that guy. After Bills Mafia, who I love, by the way, I love Bills fans. I think they are the best fan base in professional sports. I'm sure consensus agreement across the board for Bills fans is. And by the way, for the record, if the Bills don't go on a deep playoff run this year, I'm not going to hold it against Josh because I think the Bills. I don't make it sound like the Bills roster is bad. They made some nice draft picks. Keon Coleman could turn out to be a nice player. They've got Kincaid, Dawson Knox, James Cook. They seem to find nice rhythm with the run game last year. I don't know if their offensive line will be as good as a year ago, and the defense, who knows? But I think the Bills are likely. I got them right now winning the AFCs, barring knock on wood that this doesn't happen, but a major injury. They feel like a division winner to me that maybe wins a playoff game and gets knocked out by Kansas City or somebody else, Houston, in round 2. So, hey, got to roll with what the data shows, right? All right. Speaking of Patrick Mahomes, I did want to touch on this briefly. There's such a thing as having low self-esteem, especially when it comes to you comparing. What do they say? Comparison is the thief of joy. And when you are constantly trying to strive to be like, the person that you are, or the person, thing, entity, whatever the case may be, you're trying to strive to be that. And not only do you keep falling flat in your face, but you do so somewhat. It's easy to take shots at the guy or woman or whoever on top when you've never sniffed what they've done. And I say this because the Las Vegas Raiders have been talking a good game over really since the end of the season, when the Raiders, fired Josh McDaniels, rightfully so, put Antonio Daniels in, oh my gosh, that is Antonio Pierce in. My bad, Antonio Daniels. Antonio Pierce in as the interim head coach. He does a great job. The Raiders played much better, particularly in the defensive side of the ball over the course of the season. They run the football effectively, and they almost make the playoffs. By and large, it was not a bad job, which I'm all in favor of. But by the way, they are like almost Babe Ruth calling their shots, so to speak, in the AFC. When in reality, they are unquestionably the third best team. A little picture of this. Brought it to training camp. Training camp's obviously just now started. Brought this little Kermit the Frog puppet, and they put like a Mahomes afro something on Kermit's head, and they gave him a mini Chiefs 15 jersey. And you see a guy right there for the Las Vegas Raiders. That's actually Trey Taylor, who played at Army. So shout out to him. Air Force. My bad. And the Mahomes Kermit the Frog thing, and the Raiders have kind of been trolling him. And Mahomes, in response, was like, I'm not going to add to whatever fire they're trying to start. We know we're way better. And numbers against the Raiders, they are, as you might imagine, pretty phenomenal. Touchdowns, 4 picks, completion percentage 66%. He has a passer rating of 109. The Chiefs score about 34 points per game against the Raiders, and they're 10-2 against Las Vegas / Oakland. So in other words, Mahomes owns the Raiders. But it's for this reason that while I respect Antonio Pierce immensely, I think he's done a really good job in the opportunities that he's gotten with the Las Vegas Raiders, that Dak Prescott would be very ill-advised to go to this franchise. He'd be very ill-advised to go to this franchise because they've shown you that has that one that they live off the reputation of like a long ago playoff win or something of that nature. The Raiders get a late season win on Christmas Day. They go to Arrowhead. They have a couple of defensive touchdowns. They run the football effectively. They basically don't pass the ball in the second half. I mean, you would think, Antonio Pierce, we've got the number on how to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. Where do the wise, when you talk about a team that's won the last 2 Super Bowls and 3 of the last 5 and has far and away the best player in the sport and the best coach in the sport and a Hall of Fame tight end and a top 3 defense and are the dynasty of the National Football League. Maybe don't take shots at them when your roster, your personnel, your anything doesn't even come close to resembling them. If Cincinnati did this, I mean, they have beaten them in the past. There's some they really can't because Tom's gone and a lot of the guys on that Bucs roster aren't with the Buccaneers anymore, so you can't really say that. It is, to me, again, it exposes a very low self-esteem that the Las Vegas Raiders have, in the sense that, I mean, that was their Super Bowl. I mean, we make fun of, at least I do, of the Steelers' whole, hey, never had a losing season under Mike Tomlin. Good to kind of take your medicine because you'll be better off for it in the long term if you're a well-run franchise, which the Steelers obviously are. But it's not like the Steelers players, T.J. Watt and George Pickens, everybody go around parading and celebrating. No losing seasons. Let's go. Mike Tomlin himself doesn't do it. Man, he got the Raiders no impact on their season as it pertains to getting in the playoffs. The only result it has for the Chiefs season is it gives them one of the toughest roads in the NFL history to win a Super Bowl, which they ace and with flying colors. Very odd. So, listen, Vegas is more than, within their right to troll Mahomes however they want to. And I know people are like, well, it's a rivalry, Bryce. Is it? I mean, I've always been of the mindset, like a rivalry there has to be some balance to it. There has to be some push and pull rather than just a constant, get Mahomes 10-2 against them. Like, what do you want me to do with that? What do you want me to do with that? He owns the team. He might as well have a box. By the way, something else too is like a nice little cherry on top. The Kansas City Chiefs have more playoff wins at Allegiant Stadium than the Raiders do. Well, just a note. Lost that incredible win against the 49ers back in February. But yeah, I found that a very interesting comment. All right, let's transition now into the show. So the opening ceremony for the Olympics was today. I didn't really get a chance to watch most of it because I was prepping for the show. I did see pictures on social media of LeBron bearing the flag, and Coco Gauff, the tennis team for USA, the men's and women's basketball teams. Steph Curry gave Asia Wilson some really cool Olympic glasses. A little cheesy, a little corny, but you know what? It's fun. What the heck? Not many people get to say they've competed in the Olympics. Have fun. It's Paris, for crying out loud. But there's kind of been a discussion over the last 48 hours now that Team USA exhibition play has concluded. Who's going to be the leading scorer for Team USA? And some have said Anthony Edwards. Anthony Davis has been an option. I think AD will be critical to Team USA winning gold because of what we've seen from him, particularly the defense bending the floor and in his activity on the glass. But to me, it comes down, as crazy as this sounds, I think it's going to be one of the 3 old guys. LeBron, KD, assuming he gets back. Remember, KD broke the record in last Olympics for the most points per game on average for an Olympic team at 21. KD averaged 21 points per game 3 years ago at the Olympics in Tokyo and was really the driving force to us winning gold in 2021. So it could be KD. The only thing that will hold me back from KD and me not picking him to lead in scoring is that calf going to be kind of a nagging injury? Is that going to bother him as time goes on? So then it's down to LeBron James and Steph Curry. And this is a total guess. All sports predicting is, but you sometimes use data to predict this, but this is a total feel, vibes, something. I have a feeling that the training camp, the brief training camp, the 5 exhibition games, LeBron being announced as one of the flag bearers for Team USA, all of that basically establishing LeBron as the face of Team USA in 2024. I think now that he's got that, I mean, they're almost certainly going to win a gold medal anyway. I think he's going to want to get Steph kind of the shine as the scorer for Team USA. Because as we know, and it's all I've always said, if Steph and LeBron ever teamed up in their prime, which now LeBron's still great, Steph's still great. Steph's at the end of his prime, LeBron's out of it. Still great, though, by the way. If they teamed up in their prime, it would literally be, as unstoppable in a different way as Kobe, Shaq, because of how their skill sets complement each other. Because Steph's the greatest shooter ever. LeBron is as great as we've ever seen in terms of distributing, probably the greatest passer ever when it comes to kicking out to shooters. They would have been basically unstoppable. And LeBron, if Steph's not open, okay, I'll just cruise to the basket and get an open dunk or layup. Remember years ago with the Cleveland Cavaliers when, I think this was after the Cavs won the 2016 championship, don't remind me. I think it was coming into that season, LeBron had a quote of some sort. I could be getting this wrong, but LeBron had a quote that, hey, I want to get Kyrie the MVP of the league. Like, LeBron has the self-awareness, the self-confidence, the swagger. No, everybody knows I'm awesome. So I'm going to get this other guy his shine. LeBron that's what's part of what's made him great. He's one of the most unselfish teammates in the history of the game. If he's got a star teammate, he will defer if the star teammate has it going. It's what any smart basketball player would do. I think he is going to openly look. Team USA's first game is on Sunday against Serbia. Serbia has Nikola Jokic and not much else. So they really don't have to worry about sweating that game. Yeah, South Sudan happened, but that was a wake-up call. I think he'll want to see Steph get going early and say, okay, let's get him shots. Let's get him going. Let's get him more and more touches, because I knew Steph and LeBron, who have had a very interesting relationship. Steph at Davidson was kind of like the shock of the tournament back in 2008. And LeBron was literally going to his games. LeBron signed a jersey for Steph. It was like LeBron is almost like not mentoring Steph when he's coming up out of college ranks, but kind of like, hey, kid, I'll see you in the NBA. You're going to be doing great things. They were cool. And then once Steph got the MVPs, once Steph got to be recognized for a time as the best player in the world, hey, he may star in the next Space Jam movie, the sequel to Michael Jordan's Looney Tunes movie in the 90s. Then there started to be a little tension. That and the fact that they faced in 4 straight finals. That didn't help the relationship. But I think after that, I don't know when this happened. It seemed like I remember it happening around 2021-ish when LeBron saw Steph Curry in what I think, people talk about 2016 was Steph's best season. I disagree. I think 2021 was his best. He should have won league MVP over Jokic. I will die on that hill. Taking a terrible Warriors roster nearly to the playoffs, leading the league in scoring, and putting up ridiculous shooting splits. LeBron was watching that okay, yeah, this dude is, not that LeBron didn't ever think Steph was great. He's always known Steph was great, but it was yeah, okay, he's not a front runner. He doesn't let his circumstances dictate how he plays the game. When some guys, frankly, do it from time to time. So from that point on, I knew they were cool. I knew they had a pretty good relationship, all-star games and whatnot. They seem to be close friends on this team. Actually kind of tight with one another. And because of the mutual love between Steph is the guy who told LeBron, hey, LeBron, you're going to be the flag bearer for Team USA. It was a really cool moment at whatever it was, a film session for Team USA, whatever. I could very well see LeBron saying, I'm going to get him going. Because if Draymond can do it, all respect to Draymond, he does a great job at it, but I'm LeBron James. I can get Steph Curry going. If I can get other shooters going, Steph should be pretty light work for me. So that said, I think Steph Curry will be the flag bearer that's LeBron. He already did it. The leading scorer for Team USA. I really could see that happen. Got some comments. Hey, my man AJ, Cowboys camp fan. Alexander Johnson, best breakdown of the Cowboys situation today. I appreciate that, AJ. Listen, I think it's It is a tumultuous one, and I'm telling you, not the days of optimism in the Cowboys, I think, have come to an end, even for those who have been most optimistic in the Cowboys, which from time to time has been yours truly. So, but I appreciate that, AJ. And by the way, subscribe to the Cowboys Can Fan podcast, okay? The best Cowboys podcast by a long shot. No disrespect to anybody else, but those guys, AJ, Alex, Anth, do a phenomenal job on that show. Especially once we get close to football season, their watch parties are the best. I've been on their show a number of times. Some of them have been on my show on the 8 o'clock spot when that show's in season. Do a fantastic job and great group of guys. So shout out to AJ and the Can Fan guys. Shout out to Patrick as well. He says, remember when Dylan Brooks poked the bear on LeBron? You play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. Beware of who you troll. Yep. And he also says the Olympic series articles. Definitely be sure to check that out. Patrick's been putting out a lot of Olympics articles on the Grid website. Check those out. They're great reads. Highly recommend. A lot of history involved, which I always appreciate. Patrick, your thoughts on Warner Brothers suing the NBA over the TV deal? I'm not a legal expert. I won't comment. I hope they win, I guess. But, listen, here's what I want. I want the people. I want the American people, basketball fans, to win. I want to see Kenny the Jet Smith, Ernie Johnson, Charles Barkley, Shaquille O'Neal on a set talking about basketball and God knows what else beyond the 2024-2025 NBA season. Who knows? Maybe they could do the show on YouTube. Listen, I know Chuck said he's going to retire. I get that. And if Chuck is with it, not that he was ever miserable with it, obviously, but Chuck likes to golf. Chuck likes, he's 60, 61 years old. Like he's retired. He's rich. He wants to enjoy his life. If that's the case, hey, kudos. Nothing. If it's at all possible for them to keep the group together, keep the band together beyond the season, I think everybody would be in favor of that. So far than others would be, but again, what I'm rooting for is for Kenny, Ernie, Shaq, Chuck to be on a TV set talking about basketball for its finals. So there you go. All right, catch Carving Up live on Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on the Carving It Up YouTube channel, as well as the Grid Network YouTube channel. There's some weird issues. I don't know if X, Twitter, as one of my college professors say, the artist formerly known as Twitter, Elon Musk's little app that he's got going there, misinformation abounds. For some reason, apparently you have to have like a verified account on there, which you have to pay for, which only certain people in my mind should have verified accounts. For a whole other podcast, but for some reason won't let me live stream on Twitter. So if we can get that ironed out, I would certainly like to, because we certainly do have an audience on that platform. So those who watch on YouTube, on the Carving Up YouTube channel, Grid Network YouTube channel, I actually have a YouTube channel. Check that out. There's one about LeBron on my personal YouTube channel, Carving It Up Podcast. Please be sure to check out both, subscribe to both, and of course, be sure to like, share, comment again, and take two. We're exponentially. We're on the road. We are pushing forward to get to 5,000 subscribers. I mean, like, why not? Well, why not us? Why not this show? Why not the Grid Network, for that matter? So definitely be sure to, if you have subscribed, thank you so much. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. Please be sure to tell your friends about Carving It Up. Please tell your family about Carving It Up. And please tell everybody you know about Carving It Up, except for your sleeping cat. Nealon has been in good terms now. He can be very moody. I love the little fur ball. If you have not subscribed, hey, just takes a couple seconds. Take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button down there. Again, it helps the channel grow. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as and everywhere you get your favorite podcast. You get your favorite podcast. You can find us at the Grid Network, where we dare to be different. Check out Cowboys Cam fan on the grid. Check out Patrick Brown's articles, particularly on the Olympics. It is Olympic season. It is basically underway now. We'll be talking Olympics. We'll be talking certainly Team USA's game against Serbia on Monday's show, NFL stuff. Maybe we'll even have some more Dak Prescott news. Maybe listen, I am fired up. Listen, this may not be October in terms of sports news, but gosh darn it, it's like we got the bonus this year having the Olympics. In a few weeks, the WNBA will be upon us, college and NFL. Man, who's got it better than us? Nobody. That's what I'm talking about. All right. I'll see y'all on Monday's show. Please be sure to stay safe out there. Please be sure to take care of your physical as well as your mental health. And please, please, please be sure to contact your local state representatives and senators to demand change for gun violence in America. It doesn't matter where you lean, right, left, center. This is an issue that impacts every single one of us on a daily basis in this country. And no matter what anybody on either side of the aisle tries to tell you, oh, it's not a problem at all. Oh, there's only one solution to the problem. Both are BS. Both are not true. It's a huge problem that needs a number of nuanced. You're definitely keep that in mind when we're all voting for our leaders this November. All right. Olympics are underway. Training camps underway. We got more Dak contract news. It's 2021 all over again. So I will see y'all then. Stay safe out there. God bless y'all. And peace out. Red, white, and blue, baby. And the Red Sox. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube. And be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live as well as here on The Grid.